This is Travis coming in hot with Jess. And if you two are ready, let's take it away.
All right. Well, so happy to be here with all of you at the MegaCast, and even happier to be here with Keeper Security, one of the coolest teams I know. And today we've got the wonderful Travis here with us, who is going to do a pretty cool style of presentation. We've got everything kind of planned out. Travis is an expert in everything, and we are going to put that to the test today. We've got kind of a fun, jazzy style coming at you. Travis, are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jess.
All right, well, you take it away, and I'll be back with you in just a little bit, and I am going to tell you what you will be talking about next. But to start us off, take it away, Travis.
Outstanding. Yeah, looking forward to it. All right, hello and welcome to this presentation of the Keeper Cybersecurity Platform. I'm going to go ahead and bring up our presentation today. We're going to have a few surprises for you here shortly. I have no idea what they are, but sounds like a lot of fun. Anyways, today we're talking about ransomware. Obviously, this is a serious concern within the industry. And when we look at ransomware, a lot of folks will say, "What? How can I approach this, or how can I address this?" Which is something that we'll certainly cover. But the core of it is ransomware is it's a game that hackers have devised, and it's a very cruel game, and it's a game that you didn't sign up for, nor did you agree to play. So we don't want to have a fear mongering session today. This is about how you can win basically against these people. And that's really the core of Keeper Security, is that we are a team of experts who can help you, regardless of the size of your organization, regardless of your budget, to mitigate these types of attacks, these unfortunate types of attacks. So getting into some of the other vulnerabilities that we want to talk about today, let's talk about Internet of Things and the proliferation of the enterprise cloud. So Internet of Things would be devices like smart TVs, smart watches. You might have heard stories like thermostats, a digital thermostat on a fish tank in an expensive hotel, and essentially these are things that they connect to networks, but they don't have very much security associated with them. So they can weaken your security posture, because anything that's behind your firewall on your on-prem network can become a vulnerability. So it immediately opens basically a hole in your security model. And these Internet of Things devices are commonly known for those types of security holes. So that's the idea behind this. Everything that we're talking about today, whether it's the attacks, the ransomware attacks, or the Internet of Things vulnerabilities, Keeper Security becomes another layer of security for you, and we'll get into that more in detail. But just keeping that in mind, the more layers of security you have, the better. It's kind of like going out into a winter storm. The more layers, the better. So, anyways, that's a brief intro on Internet of Things devices, and then 74% of all security breaches include a human element. So user errors, privileged credentials misused, and a lot of this has to do with the social engineering aspect, which is getting more sophisticated, and certainly I could spend just an hour talking about that. But in terms of common mistakes and behaviors, what these hackers are trying to capitalize on is our habits, right? Our work habits. They're also trying to capitalize on the fact that we're extremely busy in our jobs. So when you combine those two things, people's habits and the fact that they're extremely busy, it becomes a kind of a pressure point that they can leverage. So, lack of visibility, insecure connections, recycled credentials. Your team might be in a hurry to finish a project, and they change a password and they make the password extraordinarily simple. It's like, we need to get this thing done. We need to get done in 5 minutes. We don't have time to mess with a really complex password. So we'll just create something that any grade schooler could basically guess. And of course, artificial intelligence can grab onto that in a matter of seconds. So with Keeper, the idea is, we add something that eliminates that vulnerability in terms of protecting your credentials. You can still go fast, but you're doing it the right way. You can still have quote unquote lackadaisical habits or casual habits, but you're doing it in the right way using Keeper. So yeah, 74% of breaches come from the human element, and with the the rise of artificial intelligence, that's becoming more prolific. Now, data are wasted. 11 hours are wasted every year resetting passwords by people. So we're talking about in terms of productivity. People are just wasting production hours. So when you think of that in terms of the cost of hours per employee versus the cost of having the password manager, this would be equivalent to a solution that more than pays for itself when you do that kind of math. 50% of help desk calls are password related, so there's another cost. And help desk is not a cheap staff member, I should say. The average cost for the business to reset one password is $70, according to these stats. So the combination of the issue of we're wasting employee hours, we're wasting productivity, and productivity is, depending on your averages, depending on your organization. I mean, in the medical industry, for example, most people are paid, I would say, around $15 an hour, $20 an hour. So, these numbers can become really harmful. With Keeper Security, you certainly do eliminate the guesswork out of things. You know that you're doing it correctly. Everything is driven by a team of experts. So all of these losses basically get turned into gains for you in terms of obviously the security posture that you gain, but also alleviating the lost revenue from lost hours of production. All right, and Jess, it looks like we're into our card game here.
That's right. Okay, so here's the deal. We wanted to have a little bit of fun with this, Travis. You are the expert. We want to put that to the test. So I have a handy dandy fancy card deck that matches the cards that you see on the screen. And I am going to hold up my card deck. You are going to help me choose a card. And then whatever card you choose, that is what you're going to speak on. So any one of these cards here could come up. We don't know what's coming next, and you are ready to talk about all of them, I assume. So Travis, what do you think? Which card is calling your name?
Let's go with that one.
What? Point again. I missed it.
With that one.
Right here? This one?
Yeah, that's
okay. Great. This one, we are going to start with supply chain attacks. What?
All right. Supply chain attacks it is.
All right.
So the use case that we have on this, the Atlassian data breach, with the supply chain attack, basically what they're doing is they're going after the third-party vendors, the vulnerabilities with the third-party vendors. And this is a vulnerability that you're not going to see with Keeper Security because we control everything at the top level. And so we host with AWS, with Amazon Web Services, but we do control everything from the top level there as well. And so, when you're looking at these types of attacks with third parties, the transfer of data, the goal of the hackers is essentially, obviously, to get to the data. The data is usually where the value lies. That's what they can sell. They can broker that out on the dark web, and so going through these third-party vendors who aren't as strong in their security posture ends up being very appealing. You have a greater percentage of hackers are looking for a soft target. They're not looking. Keeper is a very, very, very hard target. So the only reason that a hacker would go after a solution like Keeper is because they want notoriety. They're trying to become famous because they're trying to crack something that's basically impossible to crack. So they go after soft targets, and as a result, they go after the third-party vendors because they know that the core company, their security posture is very strong, right? So they're able to get a hold of employee credentials, use those credentials to access the data, and to get employee records and office building floor plans. What are the dangers behind this? Just very quickly, employee records containing sensitive information about them, medical history, things like that, that they can use to exploit and make threats, leverage you in some way. That's typically their goal. Office building floor plans, that's obviously dangerous from a security standpoint. So let's talk about how the supply chain attacks are formulated. They target the organization's network through the third-party vendors in the supply chain routes. So basically, think of it in terms of we're doing some kind of a data exchange, and that data exchange might be going through an API, right? Which is an API is just basically, think of it as a web page for machines to transfer, data. It's a secure encrypted web page for machines to transfer data, and they exchange typically keys and authorization tokens and such in order to exchange that data. And if someone is lax in their security model on that, then you can essentially dive into the middle and grab the data. So 98% of organizations felt the negative impact of security breach in their supply chain, that's a scary thought. That's a big number. That's a huge percentage. So being less reliant on those third-party vendors, or at least checking the security posture of the third-party vendors, but most of the time keeping the security model under your control is going to be a better posture. And then when the hackers prey on the third-party vendor vulnerabilities, if you don't have a plan for that, just like with everything else, it becomes a soft target. So their solutions with Keeper, just as an example, in this case, if we're talking about someone who is hacking you through your API, we have our secrets manager, which can essentially tokenize your API keys, and that's like taking your credit card. Somebody steals your credit card. Obviously, now they have your credit card number. That's a big problem. Taking your credit card, putting a token on top of it, so they steal your credit card, it's absolutely useless to them. That type of solution, just as one example of something that Keeper could do to mitigate those types of attacks. So, Jess, we're up again with another card.
Okay, I'm just going to give these a little shuffle. Give them a little shuffle.
Great.
I'm checking the screen here. I'm not sure which one I'm hoping for most. They're all pretty good. All right, Travis, What do you got?
Let's go with that one.
Over on this side now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think this one here. Oh, yeah, this
perfect.
is a good one. All right, Travis, we're talking about phishing. What do you got?
Phishing. All right, great. Phishing, and not the type that my dad likes. So, so phishing attacks are still very common, and these may have been some of the oldest types of security attacks. So the MOVEit data breach is what we're talking about. Basically, is hacked by they hacked the server by exploiting a 0-day vulnerability. And essentially, the definition of that is an undiscovered flaw in an application or operating system. It's a gap in the security which there's no defense or patch because the software maker doesn't know it exists. They've had 0 days to prepare an effective response. So basically, the SQL injection attack is a very common malicious type of attack that allows you to gain access again to the data and to be able to in this case they take they transferred an application endpoint to steal database content. So thinking in terms of that, an easy way to explain that would be taking let's say you have a fire hose, and that fire hose is plugged into the right place, right? So we've got the fire hose routed to the correct room, and then the hackers go in and reroute something and basically transfer that endpoint where that fire hose is pointed, and now all that data that's coming out of the fire hose is pointed where the hackers want that data to go. And so it's a very subtle type of attack, right? Because you don't assume that your endpoints are going to move. You don't assume that these addresses that you put out on the internet, these secure addresses, are just suddenly going to change. And if it's controlled through a database reference, then how do you know that has changed? Because the database is essentially the source of truth for that address. So why would we question it? It's coming the call's coming from inside the house. Why would we question it, right? So yeah, that's the nature of 0-day vulnerability. And now phishing attacks, basically they're going to target victims by having them reveal sensitive information. And we talked about passwords and credit card numbers. Phishing attacks, they occur every 40 seconds, which is massive. Still, it's a very effective way to go about things, and they use social engineering and mimicking links. So I've seen quite sophisticated phishing attacks personally, and the last one I recall was basically an offer for retirement. And I mean, as a rule, you're trained to never click on links in an email. If I'm going to a website, uh, I will go to the core website and find the portal that's naturally occurring. I am never going to use a link in an email. That's number one. But it was quite sophisticated. It actually had a correct moniker for the retirement plan that I should sign up for. So it was a person who had done research on me and sent this email that looked very official, except their data injection in terms of the variables that they put into the email were poorly spelled. The English was poorly formed. It still wouldn't have fooled me, obviously, because I've had a lot of security training, and but it does. There are quite a few people that can get fooled, and if you're extremely busy and you're the type of person who does click on links in an email, which a lot of the population does, because they haven't had the fortunate training, then they can be vulnerable to those types of attacks. And the scary thing about that is the core of this with the phishing attack. How does this relate back to Keeper, right? So Keeper is storing these privileged credentials in a vault that's highly encrypted, right? And rather than having them stored in the browser, which it's extraordinarily easy, as fast as you can snap your fingers, I could get, let's say you had 150 credentials stored in the browser, I could just grab those. And so as soon as I've been able to exploit and get into the machine, basically I can get any credentials that I want. And now I'm in the network, so I can go into other machines and grab credentials all over the place. It's scary, and it happens extremely fast. So yeah, the mitigation of phishing attacks, that's something that Keeper can very much help you to mitigate. And our experts are always working on these types of attacks to improve the way that we address them, and to make sure that your security is always rock solid in that regard. All right, Jess, next card.
Okay, now I think this might be our last card. So
Okay.
we're gonna make it a really good one. I gave them a nice little shuffle. They're all spread out. All right,
Okay, let's go on the fringe. Let's go on the edge now.
right over on this far side here.
Yeah.
Okay. Your final expert topic of the day is password spraying attacks. Travis, what do you got?
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Jess. I'll go ahead and cover that. So password spraying attacks. I love these graphics as well here.
Yeah, you
But
guys have great. These are so fun.
so password spraying attacks basically would be where someone has credentials that are reused, and so where you have a weak or reused credentials, a password spraying attack is going to allow cyber criminals to access. Obviously, if it's a reused credential, many different systems, and again, as part of that, the password spraying attack, nearly 2/3 of internet users reuse the same password, because what will happen is they'll get this kind of Academy Award type of mentality, and think, you know what, I just created the greatest, most brilliant password ever. And if I just created the most brilliant password ever, of course I want to use that everywhere. I'll use it for everything. Nobody's ever going to guess it. And so now, again, if I go back to that example of the average high level, maybe business user manager, any important person in your organization is going to have roughly 100, 150 passwords potentially. And now we have that Oscar award-winning password on 150 systems, and the cyber criminal gets a hold of that. Now they have access to 150 systems, again, as fast as you can snap your finger. So having the passwords be unique, it's something that you can't really discipline a human being to create unique passwords, to create long, unique, complex passwords. We don't think in those terms. We don't behave in those terms. So the vulnerability, unless you're using a password manager to do it properly, the vulnerability is always going to be there, because even if you have even your best people, your most disciplined people, are going to fall into a pattern because they care about being productive and they care about making you money as an organization, and that is always going to be their primary concern. And they can't concern themselves with security because they're not typically a security expert, right? So Keeper is a way to give them a shortcut to do that. I can do this in 1 second, and I can do it properly 100% of the time. And then it gives you a scorecard, right? So the hacks that we've seen in the industry. So talking about the Corridor Crew hack, this was a YouTube channel. There was a hack that was hacked through the password spraying attack, and essentially these guys, you can see the emotion here, just as far as them, grabbing onto their heads, and you can see the level of despair. It's just all these postures of despair. So they made a video showing when they were actually hacked, which I think is very helpful. So if you get a chance, go out on YouTube and look up the Corridor Crew hack. It's very jarring to see how much emotion they go through. They're instantly, it happens so quickly. First time in the morning, they're getting ready to film a show, and then within, I'd say, 5 minutes, they're grabbing their heads and they're worried that they're going to lose their jobs. They're worried that they're going to go out of business. They're talking about their physical solvency. They've been locked out of everything. All their work has completely been removed. I mean, as a YouTube channel, all their videos were taken down. Their whole livelihood looked like it was going to be at risk. And that person, as soon as they got that password, could have just deleted all the videos that they'd spent 4 or 5 years creating. So which actually did happen. They they had to do a recovery on the account, and they were, fortunately they were able to do a recovery, but you can imagine if they couldn't. So it doesn't take much to protect yourself from being in that situation. You don't want to be the person grabbing your head in despair, because you don't deserve it. You work really hard, and Keeper works really hard to protect you. We're the security experts, that you can put our solutions in place and mitigate these threats. So speaking to that, and thank you, Jess, that was fantastic. Speaking to that, the Keeper password manager, we can go over the challenges that organizations face. So we've talked about the lack of awareness, the blind spots. We all have our blind spots, and employees' resistance to change. I've encountered that personally. I've seen the CEO has put out a solution for someone and said, please use this, and verbatim the employee said, that's an extra click, and they said it with a lot of despair. It's like that's an extra click I have to do, and but it's worth it. It's an extra click that's very much worth it to protect yourself, to protect your organization. And overall, it's actually, if you think of it in the grand scheme of things, it's not an extra click, because you're actually a lot faster, you're more efficient. And one of the challenges that you can present to your employees is to say, okay, you like to use post-it notes for your passwords. Great. Go ahead and log into one website with your post-it note, and it has to be a 20-character password, just to be fair. I will log into 3 websites with username, password, and 2-factor authentication with Keeper faster than you can log in with your post-it note, which is easily done. I'm not saying that that's something that you should do, but just to emphasize how much easier it is to use Keeper, how much more efficient it is to use Keeper. We're talking about not only just you entering in passwords in 3 websites faster, but passwords and 2-factor authentication, so you're even more secure. and it's completely effortless for your employees because the password manager is filling in all the fields for them. So they get to like it very quickly. So poor password hygiene practices, and then talking about how does the Keeper platform work? How does it protect your organization? All right, so how does it work? So we're already short on time, so I'm going to be really quick with this. Basically, Keeper has an encrypted vault. We have the browser extension companion to that. That's what your employees are really going to love in terms of the user experience. We do have, obviously the 2FA integration that's going to autofill those two factors. We did talk about that, and autofilling the passwords, including also passkeys in addition to passwords. Secure sharing, top-down sharing, diplomatic sharing within your organization. The admin console, that's going to give you visibility to know that you cleaned up your password hygiene and to know that you've reduced your attack surface by 82%. So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on that right now. Go ahead and schedule a demo for more information, and I'll turn it back to you, Jess.
Yes, awesome. Travis, you got through so much information so quickly there, and I know there's lots more to learn about Keeper. So is booking the demo the best way to follow up if somebody wants to get a little bit more info?
Yeah, by all means. We always let the client run the show, and so it's going to be very casual, and we just you throw out your questions as we go. It'll be smooth jazz. We'll show you what you want to see when you want to see it.
I love it. Well, Travis, thank you so much for being at the mercy of the cards today. This was a lot of fun, and we're going to hand things over. We've got a poll question for everyone out there in the audience today, and what a great time! Thanks, Travis, for being here with us.